Okay, I'm going to start this video by saying I fall into the age group defined as millennial. I was born in 1993, the year Jurassic Park graced theater screens for the first time, Snoop Dogg's debut album sold 800,000 copies its first week, and women were first allowed to wear pants on the Senate floor. What a year! In this video, I'm going to say some things about millennials that some people may disagree with, but I'm also going to give previous generations the same treatment. But most of all, I'm going to talk about why generational labels are pointless in the first place. Let's start by defining what people mean when they say generation. A generation, in this context, is a group of people born within a fairly arbitrary range of dates. For example, you're a baby boomer if you were born between 1946 and 1964. You're part of Generation X if you were born between 65 and 1980, or 61 and 81 depending on who you ask. You're a millennial between 81 and 96, and kids born in or after 1997 are called post-millennials. Yep, millennials are so bad that the entire next generation is defined by the fact that they're not millennials. Let's play a game. I'm going to list some stereotypes and you try to guess which generation I'm talking about. Lazy, entitled, disrespectful, self-centered, impatient. If you guessed any generation at all, you're right. George Orwell once said, "Every generation imagines itself to be more intelligent than the one that went before it, and wiser than the one that comes after it." And he was absolutely right. Here's a quote for you. Try to guess what decade it comes from. "I see no hope for the future of our people if they are dependent on the frivolous youth of today. When I was young, we were taught to be discreet and respectful of elders, but the present youth are exceedingly disrespectful and impatient." So, what do you think? Which decade do you think that came from? Trick question, we can't say for certain. It's from somewhere around the 8th century. People have been lumping their children and their elders into groups for the purpose of complaining about them since basically the dawn of time. Does that mean complaints about any given generation are invalid? No, of course not. There are very specific and valid concerns about every group. Let's look at millennials, for example. We're addicted to our phones and social media, we're more depressed than any previous generation, we have very little respect for what used to be seen as a stable career, and we're incredibly entitled. A lot of you watching this probably agreed with all those, and I'm sure that at least as many of you disagreed. Let's break this down. There are two big problems with these stereotypes. One, they're stereotypes. They are, by default, highly generalized assertions about a very, very large group of people spanning a hugely diverse background. In fact, millennials are the most diverse generation in history. Now, all stereotypes are based on some grain of truth, however small it may be. Yes, most of us are addicted to our phones, but I'm sure we all know at least one person who actively tries to distance themselves from smartphones and social media. Yes, we have higher rates of depression than any previous generation, but that's partly due to the social media. And here we reach the second problem with these stereotypes. Not a single one of them is caused by some unique quality of people born between 1981 and 1996. They're caused by a number of factors, but mainly by the people who raised them. Yes, millennials have been spoiled by participation trophies, but whose idea was that? Thanks, Dad! Just kidding, my parents are lovely. But seriously, the participation trophy thing is a problem. When every child is given an award for being absolutely unremarkable, you end up with a generation of young adults who expect to be rewarded just for showing up. Yeah, that's a bad thing to expect, but the millennials who exhibit that tendency had no choice in the matter. They were raised in an environment of constant praise and assertions that they can do anything they put their minds to. We're addicted to our smartphones. Why? Because smartphones weren't a thing when our parents were growing up. Millennials got to be the guinea pigs for a culture-wide experiment that ended up shattering our perception of reality and leading to drastically increased rates of depression and suicide. It sounds dramatic, but think about how social media works. We post a status, somebody likes it. We get an instant hit of dopamine, the same sneaky chemical that activates the reward centers of our brains when we drink or smoke or gamble. Dopamine is incredibly addicting, and social media is the ultimate delivery tool. It's easy, we always have our phones on us, and it doesn't seem as dangerous as alcohol or nicotine. As far as career aspirations go, when millennials are overwhelmingly hamstringed by crippling student loans, and if we're lucky, maybe landed an unpaid internship during school, and when we get out our job prospects are still no better than our high school educated peers, the eagerness fades a little. Top that off with the fact that most entry-level positions pay worse adjusted for inflation than the jobs our parents landed, and require 5 years of experience, the options seem both limited and depressing. So yes, many millennials have a bad attitude, but the reasons are more valid than a lot of people assume. This isn't just a defense of millennials. Each generation has to take responsibility for the environment they provide for their children. The baby boomers, who largely held the opinion that loyalty to a company and putting in long hours was the surest way to move up in the world, struggled to understand why their Gen X children were apathetic about careers and angry at society. Sure, the boomers were well off, but many of them didn't make time for their families, which led their children to strive for more independence from corporations and a better work-life balance. Of course, as with anything related to generations, this is all very general. There were baby boomers with a great work-life balance. There were Gen Xers who didn't drive IROC Camaros while wearing flannel shirts, torn jeans, and listening to Duran Duran. Just like there are millennials who just want to find a decent 9-to-5 job and support their family. Unfortunately, this whole cultural norm of lumping huge numbers of people into generations has the negative effect of creating an us versus them mentality. If I hear one more person blame millennials for killing retail chains or golf or home ownership, I'm going to slap them with my avocado toast. This happens with every generation. Society changes, the way we do business changes, cultural norms, media, job markets, political landscapes, everything changes. And change is scary for the people who are too tired to keep up. Yes, technology moves quickly, but that's no excuse to blame smartphones for the downfall of Western civilization. Plenty of people are adapting to and taking advantage of every new opportunity or breakthrough that comes their way. The bottom line is this: generational stereotyping is simply based on bad assumptions. It assumes that entire populations of people share the same values, the same upbringing, the same likes or dislikes, the same psychological tendencies. Donald Trump is a baby boomer. So is Bill Gates. They're on opposite sides of every possible spectrum. Both very wealthy, one gives 95% of his income to charity. The other was busted for running a fraudulent charity. Jeff Bezos is a Gen Xer. So was Kurt Cobain. They probably wouldn't have gotten along. Then take millennials. LeBron James is a millennial, and so is Kim Jong-un. Besides the fact that they both like basketball, not very much in common. Additionally, the idea that generations exhibit totally different values is also wrong and counterproductive. If a baby boomer and a millennial would just take the time to listen to each other rather than assuming things based upon generational stereotypes, they could very well find that they share some similar values. These values could be anything from political views to adopting shelter animals to just wanting to have the time to relax with friends and family. So to recap, in this video we have complained about millennials, complained about people complaining about millennials, probably triggered both groups of people, asserted that generational labels are stupid, and used generational labels to explain things. If that sounds ridiculous, it should. This counterproductive arguing about why young people are lazy, or why old people are out of touch, or any of the pointless fighting over inevitable social changes has been going on for as long as we've had recorded history. And probably much longer than that. Maybe these so-called post-millennials can break the vicious cycle, but I don't know. They seem pretty lazy. If you enjoyed this episode, consider subscribing to support the channel. If you think I'm stupid, leave a thumbs down and tell me why in the comments below. Check out these playlists to watch my other content, and as always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.